welcome to this edition of Dustin's Kaleidoscope. I'm Dustin, and I have the pleasure of being with Carol Cain here today. And she is a food and travel blogger and also hosts the website girlgonetravel.com. Carol, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
So I wanted to first find out, how did you get started in food and travel blogging?
I started about 4 years ago. It'll be 4 years in December. I used to work in public relations and then left that to be with my 3 boys. And then just started doing things around the city. I lived in New York at the time.
Okay.
And just wanted to kind of expose people to what I was, finding out with living with kids in the city and just different things to do. And then our trips kind of got involved in that, and it grew from there.
And how did the food blogging aspect come to be?
That came also, just getting tired of walking into restaurants and not really knowing what to expect, or, whether it was kid-friendly, whether it was more of a date night type of thing. And so now I kind of, whenever I travel, I review a lot of the different eateries that I go to, and then even here at home, anytime I find a place that's really worth checking out, I like to write about it and let other people know.
Oh, okay, that's great. So going back to your travel blog, what are some of the things that have surprised you about doing the travel blog? Has it been, what in general?
I think that when I first started doing it, I really wanted to just share with my family that lived out of state or overseas. And I guess with blogging, what really surprised me was that other people would be interested and, keep coming back for more, and how helpful it was to so many people, and, and how many people find it inspiring, and motivating to, to see a family of 5, to see a mom with 3 kids traveling. It's something that people don't often see promoted. So, when you talk about it, it kind of inspires other families to kind of get out there too.
And when you started, did you start with local trips when you started blogging, or were you already doing longer trips, or?
We were doing, 1-hour road trips, maybe 2 hours, and then I think on a year after we started, the summer after I started blogging, we went from New York City to Missoula, Montana.
Okay.
At that time, the kids were 2, 3, and 10.
Okay.
So I wrote about the whole experience. And
did you travel by car or by
yeah,
plane,
we did a road trip.
Okay.
We did a road trip because it was so expensive to fly 5 of us to Montana. And the first couple of days, were the screaming and the crying and everything. but then, it was a 2-week road trip, and it was incredible. We did a lot. It was just a lot of fun.
Oh, that's great. That sounds like it's fun, and I think it's probably from a person who's reading your blog and sort of experiencing that with you, it's probably wonderful that they can see, what are the things that they should take into account when traveling.
Yeah, I try not to leave the nightmare parts out, just so that to keep it realistic. So I think that kind of helps, when you're not painting it to be always very, happy and rainbows, and, when you can kind of say, the tantrums and the crying and how long it took for the kids to adjust being in the car and that kind of thing, it helps people kind of say, okay, we're talking about a real family here. We're not talking about edited versions of, Anthony Bourdain's Perfect Life or something, So
that's great, though. So I know that we had a chance to talk outside, and you were telling us a little bit more about hiking. So we're going to take a break in about 30 seconds, and we'll come back. But right now, let's go back, and let's go actually outside, and let's go on our walk, and you can tell us more about hiking. So we'll be right back. Hi, we're here with Carol, who is a food and travel blogger, and the name of your website is
Girl Gone Travel,
and the URL is
www.girlgonetravel.com.
And we are in the South Mountain Reservation in New Jersey, and she's going to take us for a little hike and tell us a little bit more about travel and some of the things that we should consider. So It's a beautiful day here, and I can't help but notice that you are in travel hiking gear. So I know you have your backpack.
Right. I have my Patagonia backpack. my hiking boots. I think that the stores really are the places the stores to go to are really the places to keep in mind, like Patagonia and REI, and just finding the experts in the stores to help you out with the gear that you need. You don't have to start expensive. A lot of people think they have to go all the way out, but it depends on your level of, I guess, hiking expertise,
So, Carol, let's say I'm not quite at the level of going to REI or to Patagonia. Can I find hiking material or apparel other places? And what price point would you suggest for somebody who's just starting?
I really think that even if you're not going to purchase the expensive items at the stores, it's good to just stop in to kind of like get the people there to maybe look at your feet, tell you the appropriate foot. Like I have, for example, problems with my heel. So have somebody kind of look at your feet, measure you, and give you at least some sort of tip of what you need. The bigger investments really are in your boots and maybe like in your jackets.
Okay.
And just kind of like get the information from the experts at the store, even if you're not going to invest your money on there, and then you can shop around.
Okay.
But starting from a really good point like that, kind of helps you.
Okay, so I know that a lot of people, even when they're going on short hikes, sometimes they have the backpacks with the water.
Definitely, you have to have the backpacks with the water, and not only the water, but you have to have your compass, your phone. I have a lot of camera material because I do a lot of photography here. But definitely, depending on how long you expect your hiking to be, 1 or 2 bottles of water is always, and water, not those what do they call them, those energy drinks or whatever.
Okay.
I think that water is just a better, and little extras or duct tape, depending on how far you're going to go, flashlight, things like that to carry around.
What hike would you recommend for them or for the family overall? Because obviously adults will be faster.
Well, I have a 5 and a 7-year-old as well as a 14-year-old. So something like this to start out where it's kind of flat, it's not too challenging. One of the places that we like to go to is the Great Swamp Reservation also, that has kind of like a bridge and it's all flat. You can, walk a good 2 miles, I guess, and it's always, something very simple like that.
And where is that located? Where is the Great Swamp located?
It's not that far from here. It is in Essex County.
Okay.
So it's about, I would say we're in the area close to South Orange, Milburn area right now. So it's about 30-minute drive.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's one of those places that I like to go with my little ones because it's so easy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you recommend that they have all the paraphernalia too? The backpack?
No. I mean, because it gets heavy for them and they get tired, which makes our backpacks, a little heavier, but that's where you start packing a little bit more, extra water, extra, whatever it may be. Try to keep it light, try to keep it simple. It doesn't have to be, especially with the kids, a short walk.
Okay.
I think the most important thing to have is water, and of course a camera, because, you don't want to miss those moments.
You have to have those moments.
Right.
One thing that I, when I was looking at your website, all of your pictures are gorgeous and beautiful.
Thank you.
But, you don't show the, like the rain or the snow or all the other things. How do you feel about people who still want to do activity, traveling and all that kind of stuff, but the weather isn't great? Would you still recommend that they do it, or?
I mean, I do have something. It's a little old. It's from 2009 in my website. You'd have to really dig for it. Where we went to Yellowstone Park.
Okay.
And it was the first time. It was a road trip that we did from New York when we lived in the city to Missoula, Montana, and we stopped in Yellowstone. And we got there really, really late at night. We didn't know how big the park was. And we were trying to set up the tent, and I have video of it thundering as my husband is struggling to set up the tent. So there are those moments when weather gets involved. But I think that, when you're considering travel, you have to kind of be willing to take whatever comes with it. Obviously, do your research and kind of try to figure out what the weather might be like. But if you bought your plane ticket to go to somewhere, and it rains, if you're going to the Caribbean and it rains all week that you're there, kind of sucks. But, also try to do your research ahead of time to find out what else, like if you're staying in a resort, what else outside of the resort or within the resort you can do. Sometimes, it depends on where you are. There may not be too many options, and that kind of, that does happen. But I think the more you plan ahead for the potential of there being some problem with the weather, the better you would be. Try to, if you don't know, call ahead of time. One of the things that I always suggest to do is to call the visitors bureau for wherever you're going to, whatever the destination is, and just ask them for a list of different activities, museums, restaurants, and different indoor activities. They're the best source, for any type of information like that. One of the really great things about online is there's so many. You could just Google traveling with kids, and you'll probably hit a whole list of different family travel sites and resources, to kind of help you. That always start there, and I always say to trust the family travel sites or the bloggers, I guess, or because they're coming from a more personal point of view. They're kind of sharing what their personal experience was when they went with their family, and then from there kind of go to the other resources like the travel, the visitors bureaus and things like that. But visiting travel sites, especially written by bloggers, is not a bad way to start, just because they're really sharing personal information. And was it great for their kids? Was it great for their husband? Did they as a couple have something that they felt was useful? And even if you're not traveling with kids, even if you're traveling as a couple, just travel blogs are such a good resource to give you that personal, real, non-filtered kind of information.
That's great, because especially if you're going somewhere and you have smaller children and you need to, your child falls ill or something,
Right.
you need to know where the closest pharmacy or
Right,
something
exactly,
like that.
exactly.
So, yeah. Are there places that, or are there modes of transportation that you find better for children or families or singles or couples? Or
I am a big fan of the road trip, and it's funny because I wasn't a fan of the road trip when I was a kid. Because it was just, to me, I wanted to die. It was so boring, being in the car with my parents. But when we did that big road trip, our first major road trip cross country, we did it because my husband had a high school reunion, and there are 5 of us, and we were trying to figure out how to get there, and just flying was so expensive. So we figured that driving, and at first we were just like, oh my God, that's going to be like 2 weeks, back and, driving. And we were really terrified actually. But, it turned out to be one of the best experiences because we got to see everything in between. Instead of just getting on the plane and getting to destination, and then coming back, we got to see everything in between. And it was just so fabulous. And, for a family that maybe doesn't have the budget to fly everyone, road trips are such a great way to start, and also to kind of like train your child on behavior, so how do you get your child used to sitting for a long time in a confined space, not kicking the seat, not being loud. Road trips are just such a great way to really kind of like instill those social habits, and kind of get out and train. So
Okay, so Carol, we talked a little bit about different modes of transportation, things like that. So what about staying locally? What would you recommend? What ideas do you have about traveling?
a lot of people that contact my site are people that have smaller babies, for example, or even students, that don't have much of a budget to really get on a plane and go anywhere far because of their jobs or whatever it may be. And I totally recommend, staying local and doing things within your town. I mean, we're here in New Jersey right now, and from a New Yorker's mentality, that everybody's like, oh, New Jersey, but and so they go into the city. But honestly, like New Jersey has so much to offer. I am learning to, for example, where we are right now here at the South Mountain Reservation, just the hiking, the waterfalls, the scenery, throughout the entire year is such a beautiful way to get out and get moving and get your family to do something. They have a lot of activities that they hold throughout the year here and, at the different reservations in the state, and just kind of figuring out what events are happening, what attractions, museums. We're close to the, one of the biggest entertainment centers, or sorry, I forgot the name of it, the SOPAC.
Oh, SOPAC, yes.
Yeah, and the SOPAC, it offers a lot of, also entertainment. I'm booking tickets for the Nutcracker that they're going to be showing there soon, you know, without having to go into the city and spending all the money.
Right.
You know, and being able to bring the kids. And I think finding restaurants and attractions within your own area, and even if it's the next neighborhood over, you know, which is maybe a shorter road trip than something long, it's a great way to not only get to know your area, but also to stay home, you know, stay closer to home and be, you know, stay on budget.
And so how would you suggest people, like specifically in this area, are there any online resources or even, you know, real resources that you would recommend, like to find out about all of these activities?
I think that, you know, finding maybe keeping track of whatever your local newspaper is, you know, is a good resource. And every area has some form of visitors center.
Okay.
You know, maybe not to the extent of, you know, hosting tons and hundreds, thousands of visitors, but every area has like a little information online, you know, a little information link where you can kind of keep track of what's happening locally. Okay. You know, but again, your local newspaper is usually the best way. And then your neighbor too, you know, like I've been here now for a little over a year, and it's all been word of mouth. That's actually the best resource, because, you know, if me as a mom can tell, you know, another mom, this is such a great place to bring your kid, you know, or they're really kid friendly or whatever, or this is such a great date night, you know, that's not too expensive. Those are really good, you know, that's really good information to gather.
Oh, that's great. So, well, I like the idea of staying local, even for short, just finding out more about local events. Like you mentioned here, we have SOPAC, we have the South Mountain Reservation, we have other places too.
Yeah.
And all of these places you recommend, or you suggest, you can find out through the local travel bureau, if you will.
Yeah. Or
neighbors or newspapers. And for staycations, which may be a couple of hours away or so, you also recommend the same resources like papers and things like that, and you can do that relatively inexpensively.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been out of New Jersey for the past, you know, I haven't been traveling for the past couple of weeks, and yet we are still super busy.
Wow.
The Turtleback Zoo is not that far from here.
That's right.
And New Jersey, I have to say, you know, I'm from Brooklyn, and I know people that know me from New York are probably just like gurring right now, but I have to say, New Jersey, you know, gets a really bad rap. It's such a beautiful state. There's so much here. You know, it's such a big state too. You know, there's so much to do, and so many different hidden secrets and treasures that, you know, families that live here can really take advantage of the outdoors and not have to go so far. You know, the reservation here is like 5 minutes from my house, which is why we're always here. And we still are trying to, you know, this is 2,000 acres of land that we're still trying to, you know, find different spots and stuff. So, I mean, really, you just have to be open-minded about it. Travel doesn't have to be far, it doesn't have to be expensive. I always say, you know, it can just be wherever new experiences lie, that's where your travel is.
That's right. Okay, that's awesome. Well, we've covered people who want to do things outdoors and the resources they can find, people who want to travel a little farther away for staycations. You talked a little bit about people who would prefer to do indoor activities, and I think one of the best things is becoming a member of any of these, you know, places, because there are those extra benefits. So that's great. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Local government, local educational institutions, and local community members all use cable access TV to communicate their message. They depend upon it as an affordable means of outreach. Public educational and government access television empowers local government agencies, individuals, and groups to use the media to speak directly to their constituents in a more direct and cost-effective way. Make sure everyone has a voice. Support your local PEG channels.
Hi, and welcome back to Dustin's Kaleidoscope. I'm here again with Carol Cain, who is a food and travel blogger, and her website is girlgonetravel.com. And as we saw in the last segment, we talked a little bit about hiking. So now I thought we'd bring out some of hiking accoutrement and then figure out like what's necessary, what isn't, and what we should use. So can you take us through some of the things that you would suggest for a hike?
I mean, this collection here is a pretty good starter kit. For me, I have to always take the camera. I always suggest you take the camera. It depends on what you're into. If you're into bird watching, then obviously the camera is not going to be what you take. But
What would I take if I'm into bird watching?
binoculars.
Binoculars,
Yep.
okay.
So the binoculars or the camera is really nice. And then, regardless of the weather, whether it's winter or summer, always take sunscreen.
Okay.
Even if it's kind of hazy out, people underestimate the power of the rays. I always suggest if you're going to be outdoors, that good sunscreen. And with the bug spray, it's always good to be careful to kind of research where you're going to be going first of all, because sometimes depending on the eco factor of the level of protection in terms of environmental protection or regulations of the place that you're going to be visiting, some chemicals aren't allowed.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
and so, usually for our parks here in New Jersey, it's usually okay, but some areas are just a little bit more sensitive environmentally. So, it's good to kind of research what the regulations are, what the rules are, because maybe a product that you would normally find, at your drugstore is not something that you're going to be able to use. You might have to use something that's a little bit, that's a little bit more organic, natural product.
Okay, and where would I find? Are there any hiking sites for New Jersey that you would recommend?
I like to here in New Jersey. I like to use New Jersey hiking.com. I also like the Appalachian Mountain Club.
Okay.
And I like them because they list the different trails that you can find in the area, whether, a few hours away or nearby. But then in addition to that, they also kind of measure the level of difficulty, whether it's easy or moderate or difficult, how many miles, what you can expect. And then I know that with NewJerseyHiking.com, you also get reviews from people who have done, the hiking and what their personal experience has been. So you kind of, and you can also print maps there and things like that. So anything with regards to the environment, any regulations, whether you can bring dogs, whether you can picnic, whether it's something that's a little bit more fragile, environmentally, that's information that you can definitely find there.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, and things like what to bring as well, it's also really helpful. The hat is really good, again, for the protection, for sun protection. I also think that you should always wear layers.
Okay.
Sometimes you start out with a really cold a cold morning, but then it gets warmer as the day progresses, or vice versa. You kind of start out a little warmer. So jackets and, different layers, things that are really light.
Okay.
Sporting goods stores are really good in kind of directing you in what type of gear you should have.
Okay.
When you pack, this is a really great backpack because it provides with the water, the little water tubes and little drinking tubes that
This is the bladder. I take it,
and
which is
so
what they call a bladder. So
I love it because a lot of times if you're doing a really strenuous hike and you're using the walking sticks, you kind of need your hands for that kind of motion, and so this enables you to have the freedom to not have to kind of always be reaching for your water bottle.
Okay. And just for those who don't know, you know what? I'm just going to actually put this in here and just sort of put it on. So it's just a regular backpack, except they
come bigger than this as well.
Really? Okay. But it would just, so you could put water in here, obviously. But in addition to that, would you carry anything else? So
you can carry pretty, a lot of different things. I mean, here you have a nice little front pocket.
Like, would you suggest
for your
it, though?
phone? This plastic here is pretty heavy duty, and it'll protect whatever you have in there. I mean, like I said, they come a little
to drink
right.
from
Yeah,
this. Okay.
They usually just kind of keep the little
Keep it
spout
on
right
like this
there
and just have it to drink.
Yep.
Okay.
And then it's always good, even if you're not thinking of hiking into dusk or at night, it's always good to have a flashlight. At the very least, it'll help to scare a bear away or something.
That's a whole different type of hiking.
And you never know. I mean, you're out there in the wild, in nature, so you never know what to expect. But it's always good to have a flashlight, always good to have a compass. I go with my iPhone. I don't tend to go too far, but, a regular compass is a smarter way to go because your phone could always die.
Would you recommend these? Now, these are smaller lights. These are the lights, like the headlight ones that you would just wear like this. Do you recommend those as well, or would you just say that it's better to have a traditional flashlight?
I mean, I think the flashlight or this is more if you're going to be going, a lot of like people who like to go into caves and things like that use these. But again, and they're easier either way. But either one is a good, obviously. So
this will scare away bears too.
Probably not as much. I mean, just in case. And before people go out, and if they're thinking about what is a definite must, you definitely should invest on your boots. I think that a really good pair of hiking boots would not only give you the support that you need and protect your feet against spiky rocks and slips and things like that, but also against the cold and getting wet and so forth. So if you invest in nothing else as much, at least the boots are something that you should definitely put some money into.
Okay. And then so if I have a regular backpack and I have the water backpack, would you suggest carrying both, or like one in the front and one in the back, or just?
No, I think when you're going to go hiking, it's better to go as light as possible.
Okay.
I like to go, I go hiking with my kids, and so obviously if you're going to go hiking with kids, you're just carrying extra stuff, snacks and bottles and things like that. I try to encourage them to start carrying their own little things.
Okay.
So I'm not, packed like a mule, but, it's the role, it's what happens. But I think that we should always try to pack light and not too heavy. You never know, sometimes there are trails that you take that are unexpected that might be a little bit more strenuous than you think. Sometimes you might go a little bit further than you think. It's just a matter of trying not to overexert yourself with weight, with having to, deal with the weight.
Okay.
And trying to conserve your energy and your strength for just making it through the trails.
Okay. So if we had to look at all of these things and say like you said the boots are the number one things
boots,
you're hiking,
and then like your jacket. I mean, and it doesn't even have to be an expensive jacket, maybe something that's waterproof, but as long as you have layers, I'm big with layers, so it doesn't have to be a big huge coat, as long as it's maybe a little bit waterproof and you can layer it up to keep warm.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like if we have most of these things, I mean, you don't have to have a camera. I mean, we could have a disposable camera, I'm assuming. You don't have to have, the high-end camera. But the thing that I learned big time today is that some of the DEET and some of the other insect sprays, those are things that you really have to take into consideration. And you said that New Jersey Hiking, is NJ Hiking or New Jersey Hiking?
NJhiking.com, an Appalachian Mountain Club. And I mean, I think that if hiking is something that you're really going to want to get into anyway on a regular basis, if you can start investing on organic products anyway, anything that we can do to try to protect the environment as much as possible is helpful. A lot of the swampland that we have here is very sensitive to chemicals anyway.
Okay.
So I think that if you're going to be spraying it outdoors, it doesn't hurt to start that route anyway, but just know that some locations just don't give you the option to go with the more generic stuff.
Okay, well, thank you so much. We have been listening to Carol Cain, who is a food and travel blogger. The name of your website is Girl Gone Travel. Thank you so much. I mean, we've learned a lot today. And we will see you next time on Dustin's Kaleidoscope. Bye.